Speaking of what we should do in the future,
Hmm.
should we move on to our plans for the future? Because we already have some
Our
plans.
retirement.
Yeah, this is the end of Cutscene Combos.
Yeah, we made it to 100.
but
psych.
maybe a season 2.
I suppose we can greenlight a season 2.
Yeah, season 2 is officially greenlit by Cutscene Studios. So before we get into the I have some kind of points about Delusion. Let's talk about what we have already kind of locked in as is definitely happening
Yeah.
post episode 100. So
we're going into a season 2.
Yeah.
That is kind of where now, for the most part, you won't. Well, episodes will carry on on this number.
Yeah.
It's just a theoretical season 2, I guess you could say it.
We'll have a new playlist for the season 2 episodes.
Yeah. More so because we want to try some new things and kind of, we've done 100 episodes, we've learned a lot. We want to push this to the next step of visually and how the content's done. So the idea of splitting it into a season 2 just made sense.
Yeah.
Going forward.
The editing style going forward is going to change, as well as the upload schedule.
Yes.
So from next week, main episodes will go up on Saturdays, not Fridays. So next Friday there will be no video whatsoever.
No.
But we have to allow that one day to build a buffer in, and then it will still wrap around as it does, just shuffled back a day. So we're going to continue recording on Thursdays, but by freeing Friday up as a segment day from the previous week, it's going to allow Hori to have a bit more creative freedom with the editing and try some things with less time constraints.
Yeah, it gives me essentially go from having 12 hours, I get an additional 24 on top of that to turn an episode around.
And it's going to allow us to try more things, because the big thing we've done a lot of is try things with shorts.
Yeah.
And while shorts aren't perfect, we've seen a benefit from being able to try stuff with shorts. So if we can free up the time to be able to try stuff with segments and full-length videos, we're going to hopefully be able to see and find the same benefits. As well as, while Hori isn't exactly someone who wants to be in bed early, it means he doesn't feel a need to stay up till 4 a.m.
I mean, I've actually kept quite a good sleeping pattern so far this year.
Do you know what? With your obsession with Power World, I'm amazed that you've been sleeping as well as you have.
2 days when Power World dropped where I went to bed late, I degened, and then I was like, nope, I need to correct this and not let this become a habit again. And we're doing good so far.
So yeah, that I think that's the biggest change we're going through.
Yeah.
As a result of that, what I look like as a image quality,
Con's getting plastic surgery.
Yeah. I might not look better because you can see me in higher quality, but I will be in a higher quality image.
Yes.
And we're going to play around with some stuff there. Hori's going to have, I hope, some fun with it. To see what he can pull off. You're also planning a new intro.
Yes, we're going to have a new intro.
We've got a little refresh of the branding.
Yeah, a little just a refresh and refinement, because a lot of that stuff, like the branding and the intro, like I smashed out for episode 1 and then we've just used since, and it was fine for what we needed. It served its purpose. We have 100 episodes under our belt now, though. I feel I can come up with something a bit more creative.
It's really weird because, like, while in reality there's not that much difference between episode 99 and episode 101. Episode 100 feels like a real kind of achievement where you can kind of go, right, that is behind us now. Let's get funky. Let's risk changing stuff.
Yeah. Well, we have a catalog of.
No, I want to get to 100 before we fuck with stuff too much.
Yeah, I mean, it just makes sense, right? You've done 100. You've proven, like, look, we can do this thing for 100 times over. Like, we can change it up now, and we know it's not gonna fail, or it's not gonna put us off wanting to continue, sort of thing.
The content championship is obviously ending.
Yes, the final today.
So we're moving on to our new bracket. which is going to be the fandom face-off, which is going to be a short bracket before we move on to another different kind of bracket.
Mm-hmm.
But that is no longer going to be included in the full episode.
No.
Our logic there was basically episodes are long.
Yeah, some weeks it can get up to 2 hours. As much as I'm sure people love listening to us for 2 hours, not everyone has 2 hours to spare in one go. And I know from my personal experience, like if I see a podcast that's an hour to an hour and a half, I'm like, oh, okay, I can shut that on. See a podcast for 2 hours, I'm like, okay, I need to put that on at a certain time when I know I've got time to listen.
Once you're kind of like at the point where the first digits are 2, people are more apprehensive to click.
Yeah.
So we're going to remove that as the last segment because we don't want to get rid of that kind of style
No,
of content because it does so well for us.
We enjoy the content and we enjoy the discussion. We're just not going to include it in the weekly episode. It's going to be its own thing.
Some of our superhero showdown ones still get views to this day. Like decent views, they're just continuing to grow. So that style of content definitely has a place on this channel, but viewers aren't sticking around for it at the end of the episode, but they are still watching the video. So let's cut it off the episode, make the episode more condensed and easier to listen to, less of a commitment, and we will record that separately, and that will still go up when it goes up every week.
And it's almost essentially us kind of dipping our toe into just not repurposing the podcast for content, but actually just having like, this is a content piece that we are doing on its own, standalone.
Because I
kind of love that.
We've discussed, and this is kind of dipping into the ideal scenario that I was going to wait for, but it's kind of like the dream we've always had would be eventually to get to a point where we can dedicate enough time to this financially that we can have the podcast essentially just be the Nerd News Network, but with more thought put into it.
Yeah,
and then each segment is kind of a thing that we would script up, sit down, record, and that's its own thing that we spend a bit more time on. So the stuff wouldn't change too much channel wide, but each bit would be more focused on what we're trying to do. And then it would be more natural. And then the podcast would essentially become the Nerd News Network, where we talk about the weird and the wonderful and the rumors with a bit more time to go over them.
Yeah, and also like just our general like what we've watched this week and stuff, and be a more relaxed conversation in a way.
And I like, it's crazy, but I'm trying to be more positive this year. I definitely think we can get there one day.
Yeah.
But there is, unfortunately, because the world sucks, there is kind of a level of financial success required for that to be possible.
Yeah. The podcast would have to hit a certain point for us to take that leap into dedicating that much to it.
Like I've played around a bit on my channel, like the first version of that one up today, of like scripting up a video and recording it. And I'll be honest, I had a very bad experience with writing during school because my handwriting was atrocious, which put me off writing because it was like a thing I kind of felt self-conscious about because it was such ugly handwriting. Whereas typing up has helped me kind of remove some of that. And I was pretty happy with the script I put together for like a first script that I put together.
Yep.
So the idea that one day we could get to a point where I get to sit down and like script up a video and like be a bit more cutting out like and and stuff like that, and put more thought into the words I'm trying to convey, I'd love that so much. Give me like probably if we could find a way from this to make like in a year 10% less than my annual salary, or just enough that I know my bills are covered, I'd probably be like, fuck it, I'm happier doing this.
Yeah, I mean, we weigh it up, right? If we get to that point, you weigh up the risk to if it's worth the jump, so to say.
Exactly. But the biggest bit of news at the end of the day, this podcast has always been two friends sitting down, waffling about superheroes and space Jedi wizards and ancient golems and everything in between. And that is what we are at our core, and that's always what I want the first thing to be. It's like, if we get to the point where it's like, oh, do you watch cutscene convos? Yeah, then two fucking losers who just waffle.
Yeah.
Like, I'm more than happy to be known as the two losers who waffle. But do you know what's better than two?
Hmm.
Three. So
Three losers that waffle.
Yeah. Our friend Josh, who
Yes.
I believe appeared in episode 18 as a
Yeah.
guest.
And he came
a-
on. Did he not come on as the group session as well?
Oh yeah, we did the
Before
first
the
New Year's Eve recap one with
yeah.
the four boys. Yeah. So Josh is going to join us once a month
Mm-hmm.
as our gaming correspondent,
Yes.
I guess is the best way to describe it. Josh is an absolute beast for staying on top of gaming news.
He is, and he's
Just
also obsessed with getting platinum trophies
yes,
in almost any game he possibly can.
yeah,
Purely just to have the trophy, and like even if he's not that into the game, he'll get the game like completely. Like the
exactly.
man's obsessed.
So once a month, starting from episode 102,
Mm-hmm.
Josh is gonna pop in to give us an update on all the gaming news. So gaming stuff will be leaving our weekly Nerd News Network as and when. And instead it will wait for that monthly roundup of anything that's
Let him
going on.
cover it.
And he will come in, he will do his bit, he'll talk us through the gaming news, and that will go up as its own segment. Once again, kind of just adding. We want to just add and improve and make it better. And for better or for worse, it's less strain on me or you to think of any gaming news that's relevant. We're gonna, in the end, bring more gaming into it, but in a more controlled way.
Well, yeah, it's like rather than us dropping it in there, I was like, oh, this week we also thought we'd mention the fact that Spider-Man 2's game's done, or like whatever. So we leave that up to Josh to bring in. Keeps it to a more concise thing.
Exactly.
Let's just focus on watching our nerdy shows instead.
Exactly. Which I'm very excited for. Josh,
yeah.
He doesn't watch the podcast regularly enough to probably have heard this part. Josh is brilliant. He knows his stuff really well. The man is so plugged into the gaming world, it's unreal. To put in perspective, Power World, which has blown up, he mentioned to me and you about a week and a half before its launch, going, "This looks good. We should give it a go."
Yeah, he did.
Like he's got his finger on the pulse of stuff.
He was like, well. Power World's coming out. We're trying it, and I was like, Power World, and then it was the Pokemon with guns, and I went and I was like, oh, I remember this trailer on the Xbox thing. I thought it was really weird. I'm so glad we jumped on it.
Yeah.
It's been such a good game.
We probably would have played it because of how big it got anyway.
Yeah.
But would we have organized it for as early as we did if Josh hadn't already mentioned it? So like if you were to tell me you've got to choose someone to come on and do gaming news once a month, Josh would absolutely be my first choice. He knows exactly what he's doing. So I'm very, very excited for that.
So is it in another 100 episodes we get to the point where I can persuade you to let Luke come on and we can talk about the F1?
Cutscene sport.
Yeah, cutscene sport segment.
I tell you what.
Or cutscene racing.
If Luke
wants to talk about F1.
If Luke feels the need to become our sports correspondent, I won't give you F1 solely. I'll give you a sports correspondent.
I only care about F1
because Luke pays a lot of attention to sport in general, like myself. So Luke,
yeah, but I don't care about other sport. I only care about F1.
Unfortunately, that's part of the deal, my friend.
We've got Luke reporting live from Silverstone as.
Now that we've got through the stuff that is already confirmed and definitely happening.
Yes.
Let's get a little bit delusional for a minute, and I use that word for a very specific reason. So, I'm sure I've mentioned it before, but a creator that I look up to quite a lot is Ludwig.
Yes.
And a number of years ago, he did a kind of like, "So you want to be a content creator" style video, where he talked through like, yeah, obviously a little bit of luck is required, but if you don't do these things, no luck in the world is going to help. About a week ago, he did an updated version because the landscape has changed so much.
Oh, I've not seen that.
And a big thing I took away from the video was him going, "You've got to be delusional," because becoming a massive creator is about as likely as winning the lottery.
Yeah, it is
Um,
nowadays.
so you've got to be delusional. You've got to just throw yourself out there and genuinely believe that, yeah, cool. Only 1 in every 10 million people are going to be the next big thing. Cool. I'm the one.
Mm-hmm.
So this year I'm going to be delusional. I'm gonna back the boys in a way I haven't done before. I've always believed in our content, obviously, because I wouldn't do it if I didn't.
Mm-hmm.
But the big thing that, like, one of the things I'm focusing on this year is not being embarrassed anymore. And there's
Mm.
like this weird kind of, it's always been there. Although I was really late to YouTube and everything. Like, I
Yeah.
fully got into Twitch and YouTube in like 2018, about a year before I met you, when Fortnite went nuclear. Like, in that scheme of the world, I'm so late and behind everyone.
Mm-hmm.
But I remember people at school were getting mocked and bullied for uploading YouTube videos, which I think, although it wasn't something I cared about at the time, kind of still sat with me. I was
Mm.
like, oh, it's a bit cringe, it's a bit weird. I'm over it. I'm 24 years old. I'm in a relationship of nearly 10 years. I'm happy. I'm content. I'm making stuff I'm genuinely proud of.
Mm.
But who's got time to be embarrassed anymore? I'm uploading to my personal Instagram, my personal Twitter, on my stories. I am gonna force my content down every person who knows me personally's throat, so that if they don't support me, they're like, "Oh, I can't make eye contact. I deliberately chose not to watch this video. I feel embarrassed. I'm not going to be embarrassed anymore."
See, I don't think I've ever been. Well, maybe this is because I got into doing YouTube on and off for years now, and like I mean, I got into streaming back when I got into playing League, which was when I was 17, so like 11 years ago.
2005, yeah.
I mean, it'd be what? Like 2013, 2014 is probably when I first streamed, and it was League of
Yeah.
Legends. Most boring game I could have chose to start streaming on, but here we are.
Back in them days, no one cared.
But like back in them days, there wasn't this like it was still really new in the grand scheme of things. But it's like and before that, I was messing around trying to do COD edits, and then I was doing speed arts when I was in high school and posting them on YouTube, which is like, and I've gone back and found some of them, and some of the graphic stuff I was doing was atrocious, but I was learning Photoshop at like 15. I think I'm pretty used to not necessarily being embarrassed about posting stuff. My thing I've always struggled with is actually talking about, not kind of promoting myself,
Yeah,
not from an embarrassed way. It's like I'm very good at like with my photography. I post it. I don't care if I get likes. I don't care if I get views. I put it out there. I'm happy with the photo, but then I'm really bad at being like, yeah, I did this thing. Like I'll put it out there, and then I'm like I move on to the next thing, which I know I've done a lot with this podcast. Is we've put out episodes, and I've been really bad for like being like, hey, we did another episode of the podcast. I'm just like, yeah, I'm putting it out there. It's like I'm not cool. It's out there. I'm not. If someone finds it, I'm not embarrassed. But I've not sung my own praises enough.
exactly. And I think that's something we both need to work on, because
Mm.
whether it's everyone's cup of tea or not, we have worked hard to build something that is genuinely good.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily think we are like the epitome of artistic discussion. I'm not like
No, we're
I'm
not
not losing my
film
mind like that.
critics.
But at the same time, we have built, I think, a podcast that allows people who enjoy stuff but maybe aren't super nerdy for it to be able to come in and feel like they're not being spoken down to. That was a big thing we always spoke about. It's like, if someone falls in love with comic books and wants somewhere to start, we want to be that safe
Yeah.
space they feel like they can ask the dumb questions.
Well,
Do you
yeah.
know what I mean? Like, that's always
It's
what I've wanted.
we've always wanted to be the place like I said when we were like looking back and stuff, is like this came from we just wanted to discuss the shows we were watching, and I asked the questions or you asked, and we just discussed about what we were already talking about. We wanted to feel like a place where people that are watching these shows would be like, huh, I thought this about the show, but then they go and watch the video and like, oh, okay, someone else was thinking this. And it's like, it feels like people are listening in to just a discussion with their friends about the
Yeah.
shows that are coming out. And sure, we maybe put a bit more time and effort into like thinking about how these things are produced, or like reasons, and maybe we'll go a bit more in depth than the normal average viewer might. But I think we've done a pretty good job over 100 episodes of building that. And while we may not be like the biggest podcast to be doing this area of content, I think we built a pretty solid foundation of like, we get like, we're not on like huge viewership, but like we get views, we've built that ground level, which a lot of podcasts never even make it to.
Yeah. At the end of the day, I will be able to sleep easy if we like never get a play button of any kind.
Yeah.
But if we start getting play buttons, you best believe that I'm going to go hog wild making this the biggest thing you've ever seen. I'm kind of I'm willing to work with the demand. Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
going to work hard. We're going to keep doing what we're doing. And if it gets to the point where people are like, we want more, we want bigger, we want better, I'm like, yeah, let's do it. But if it stays at this level where it's a weekly podcast where we have regular viewers that we get to know in the comments or whatever, I can live with that as well. I've kind of entered a stage where I'm like, if it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, it doesn't. But at the same time, I'm going to try my best to be a friendly face.
I
I
get you.
think you see a lot of people talk about like comfort content creators.
Mm-hmm.
The notion that anyone, when they're feeling sick, puts on one of our podcasts, probably for your voice more than mine, and they're
I
like,
don't know what you
they
mean.
like lay there with like whatever their comfort food is when they feel like shit or they've had a bad day, and they
Mm,
binge watch the last 3 episodes. I would live my entire life happy if that's like how someone views our channel. Like, I could absolutely live with that.
yeah, same.
On the flip side, I have so many aspirations if we make it bigger than that. If we start hitting play buttons, I'm so down for like I've seen some of like the ideas you've had for like your own kind of merchandise in the past when you've like mocked stuff up.
Yeah.
I'm so down to turn our logo into a little like snapback or beanie or hoodie, and
I
I
mean,
the letter C is so good for alliteration. I love alliteration. You'll notice it in basically everything we do.
so the comic books.
Cutscene coffee, cutscene comics.
Coffee.
If
Well,
we were to get the opportunity, and this I've said this to Jenna a bunch of times, and I'll drag her in so she can confirm this. I would be the worst rich person ever, because what I would love to do is spin up a bunch of businesses that essentially operate as a non-profit. They're
mm,
like, right, I will take a salary, but I'm not going to do much. I'll take quite a small salary, and we're gonna cutscene cinemas. We're gonna run a cinema. We're gonna show the stuff that we want to see. We're gonna sell reasonably priced popcorn at reasonably priced tickets, and any profit we get, we'll put a little bit aside to make sure that if we have a bad month, that everyone still gets paid,
mm-hmm.
and everyone else is. We're gonna have the best paid cinema staff in the world. Like I would love that so
Yeah,
much.
I get what you mean. It's like, it would be amazing to get this to a point where, yes, the podcast is like the core of where this all came from, but like the idea that maybe down the road, Cussing Combos essentially becomes a studio, and under
Yeah,
that studio, we can fund like, I don't know, a comic book where it's just like the publishing costs of a comic book,
yeah.
or help like more independent things, or maybe that, like you say, cinema, or that, yeah, you can do merch and you can do all these other things. There's a lot of ways that we would love to like take this and push it into those areas that we love and what helped create the podcast essentially. And it's like, yeah, if we can get to that point, it'd be amazing.
Just imagine like a comics is obviously something that's really close to my heart.
Mm,
Imagine the idea of, I don't know, like I think like the golden tier would be like invited to get a credit and collaborate on like a Marvel comic. So like, we're doing a Marvel creators run, which I think they've done stuff like that before, and we get to go in there. You get to influence the art style. I get to influence the story. Like that would be. I think I would live on cloud nine forever if we got to do that. I don't even think I'd bother to look at Twitter to see if people liked or hated it. Just knowing that I was involved in something like that, I think I'd get issue 1, I'd frame it, and I'd just stare at it happily for the rest of my life. But on the flip side, like you said, being able to fund, like if we like opened up submissions for someone who's got a comic they're trying to make, and we saw
Well,
one
yeah.
and we're like, that's really cool. Let's put our stamp on it and fund it.
Well,
That would be fucking awesome.
to like take a page out of some creators' books, there's a bunch of the top streamers, um, like Soda Poppin and stuff, that while some content creators in the streaming space have been like, "Oh, I'm starting a game studio and we're gonna make a game," not to disrespect someone, like they think that's their way of getting into gaming, when it's like, respectfully, they know nothing about building a game studio and how to make a game. Whereas like Soda Poppin and stuff have started a publishing company. So they can be like, yo, indie developers, we have this huge reach. We have the funding. Like, bring us your game ideas, we'll help publish you.
Yeah,
I think that's a better approach. And it's like the idea that like Cutscene Convos could become a comic publisher, and it's like these independent comic guys are coming to us and like, yo, I've got this comic run, and we're like, holy shit, this is such a good comic. We will help you publish this and get it out there. To get to that point would be amazing. Whether that also then is like publishing for like, I don't know, an animation studio or something as well under that. Like, imagine there's we have an animation studio that we help publish for, and it's like they get to do a Star Wars Visions episode. That would be fucking amazing.
I think the best way to describe what I would love for this to be is for this to be the building block off which we get to pursue even more of our passions.
Mm.
With yours being artistic and mine just being kind of like storytelling, yeah, it
Mm-hmm.
would be great if we can sit there and just go like, you get to sit there and spend a month designing your own kind of shoe collection. Like I love trainers, and it's like, yeah, this is Cutscene Combos collection by Horizontal. These are fucking sick. This is inspired by Star Wars. This is inspired by Lord of the Rings, by Marvel, by DC. Look at these, they're fucking awesome. Or like you said, publishing an artist who's doing something we love.
Yeah.
I just, and don't get me wrong, like this is so like big picture, and there is a
Yeah.
99% chance that we don't ever get there. But like Ludwig said, you got to be delusional. You got to think you're the one who can do it, and best believe, and you can hold us. You can clip this right now. If we get big enough, that's I'm more than happy to live like off a slightly above average wage for my entire life, no matter how famous this podcast gets, if it means we can just throw money at stuff we are passionate about. At the end
Mm-hmm.
of the day, we've both lived our lives with very moderate upbringings and very moderate lifestyles. Loads of money isn't going to change my passions, but having loads
No.
of money to throw at my passions would be that would make me happier than being a billionaire. I mean, I
Oh,
don't
I've
think anyone who's watched any of these 100 episodes thinks that I'm the kind of person who thinks billionaires should exist.
if
I'd much rather throw money at the
don't
economy.
worry, we all know that I would end up having to be CEO because Connor could never be a CEO.
Oh yeah, no. Let me just be like a vision officer or something. It's fine.
It's fine. I'll be CEO and I'll take my 5 million salary.
There is zero chance that happens because don't forget, I'd still be 50% owner.
I know.
But yeah, I'd love for this just to become like that first cog that just allows loads
Yeah.
of creative people to do creative things. Even if we could just get like on a smaller scale, a less outrageous scale, even if we could get like you said, like a cutscene studio where we allow someone like Josh to come and record a cutscene gaming show where he just gets to discuss everything gaming, and you and Josh do like you and Luke, sorry, do like a Formula One show. Me and Luke do like a
Oh, yeah.
football or a cricket show. Just everything that just passion in everything. Just what do you feel passionate about today? I really want to paint this wall. Okay, we're gonna record it. Just do it with passion. I don't care.
Yeah, like realistically, like a more realistic but still out there goal is that this gets to a point where we have it can provide us the means to have a space, like you say, so this podcast can maybe be done in person. We can also then use that space for all of the content and give our friends places to pursue their content and stuff as well.
Yeah.
I think at the end of the day, if we can get to this point where it funds what we're passionate about creating, then that's all we need it to do.
Exactly.